Hey everybody, I'm getting a lot of questions for a long time now about my take on crystals, crystal properties, the crystal business and metaphysics. So I'm going to address it as best as I possibly can, and hopefully everyone gets the answers that they've been asking me for. Do you believe that crystals have energy? This is personal beliefs. This is not fact. This is all speculative information. This is also why I tend to stay away or stray away from talking about this, because I do believe it's very personal and it is very speculative. So I don't want to be giving out information, and this is a disclaimer more than anything else. This is all personal beliefs, which I've been very hesitant to give out, but because it keeps coming up and coming up, let's just do it. So do I believe crystals have energy? So this is what I believe. So you have physical tools that you would use to build a home, let's say. You have a screwdriver and a hammer, just giving two examples. You don't use a screwdriver when you need a hammer. You don't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. And I believe that crystals are like that. Crystals are tools, but instead of building a physical home, we're building a metaphysical vessel, if you will. And so I believe that each crystal does have a unique energy and a unique property to it, and that is very specific to your personal needs. And that's something that I think people should be way more interested in figuring out on their own, as opposed to going to these websites and these books that were kind of candy coated, in my opinion. I haven't, and I know a lot of you may disagree with this, but I haven't personally come across anything that really made a tremendous amount of sense to me, or that I thought was worth recommending. So I've seen a lot of books, I've seen a lot of websites, I've talked to a lot of the people who wrote these books and built these websites. And quite honestly, and forgive me if you know what I'm talking about, but they just make this stuff up, you know, or they've read it somewhere else and they're just, you know, kind of playing telephone. So I don't really think that there's any authoritative force on this. If you want to really do some research, look at Pliny the Elder, who was kind of the OG, who started talking about crystals and their properties and things like that. That's worth researching. But again, back to what I was saying, I think that crystals are tools, and I think we need to use the right tool for the right job. And I think that we need to have the information and the education on how to actually properly use that tool. You getting a crystal and putting it in your pocket, I don't think that that's going to bring you the thing that you're looking for. That's my personal opinion. You're not going to get a piece of rose quartz and then put it in your pocket and all of a sudden meet your soulmate. I don't think that that's a possible thing. I think it might provide you with a little bit of boost in the direction of getting yourself ready to find a soulmate. So that's what I think. I think crystals are a tool that you need to use to get you where you want to be, but you also have to do the legwork. You know, the screw is not going to screw itself in. You have to pick up the screwdriver and screw it in. The nail's not going to nail itself in. You have to pick up the hammer and nail the nail in. And the same thing goes for crystals and stones. And the more you practice, or the more you incorporate it into your life and your lifestyle, I think it becomes a little bit more reasonable for you to start actually getting something out of the crystals, and not just being like, oh, I read in this book that this stone does this thing and now it's going to work for me. I don't personally think that that works. What is your take on crystals healing? So, not to get too deep into my own personal process, but the way I originally got into crystals and stones was through energy healing and through doing energy work and trying to figure out tools that protected me from picking up other people's energy or other people's vibration. And I found crystals to be an amazing, you know, after some trial and error, I found crystals to be a really amazing tool for preventing me from getting too deep into somebody else's energy, and also from preventing me from picking up other things. Now, I've seen a lot of people with a lot of different ailments. I've gone through my own ailments, and I don't think that crystals are going to heal you. That's my personal opinion. I think that what's going to heal you is this and this. That's what I think. But again, like I said, I'm around crystals so much. I see hundreds of thousands of tons of these things all the time. I still love them the same as I did when I first started. I've just lost that that resonance where, like, I pick up something and I feel it. Because it's like being in water all day and saying you feel wet. It's just something that happens over the course of being around it so much. For sure, when I go into the mines, I feel this tingling vibration. That's a special place. Maybe healing can happen in the mines. I think that that's a possible thing. Again, my own personal opinion. But as far as metaphysics goes, and as far as crystals and spiritualism goes, I think there's so much legwork that needs to get done before we start talking about all these fancy things. When I run into people, and most people don't know this about me, but I taught metaphysics for many, many years before I started my businesses. And the major concept that I was trying to get across to people was that spiritualism and metaphysics is not this mystical, magical thing that we all think it is. Because in order to define spiritualism, you need to have a definition that everyone agrees upon. And then, you find someone that's spiritual, and they're like, I'm like, do you consider yourself a spiritual person? Yes, I'm a spiritual person. Do you want to be a more spiritual person? Yes, I want to be more spiritual. Define spiritual. And you get the crickets 100% of the time, because no one's even defined it. People are walking around saying they're spiritual, yet they don't fully understand what that means for themselves. And not only that, it's not just a personal process. It's not just an individual thing. We can't just start guessing at what that means. We have to have a set standard for what being spiritual means. And I've always taught this throughout my years of teaching. One, a spiritual person is always going to give 100% effort to what they do. And I liken this to learning from a lazy spiritualist. Like, are you going to go and take to a guru who's lazy as hell? No, you want to be attached to a guru, or you'll think that someone's a spiritual master when you see them working so hard for everything they believe in. Number two comes down to correct decision making. And I liken this to, would you want to learn from a teacher or a master or a guru who makes really bad choices? Absolutely not. And so for me, the fundamentals of spiritualism are 100% effort in making the right choices. Now, that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother conversation I'm not going to get into, but why don't we address that first and do that first? Let's remove laziness. Let's remove bad decision making. And then let's talk about transcendental meditation and kundalini and crystals and all these other things that go as tools. But again, it's like me saying, okay, I'm going to become a contractor. I have no tools. I have no experience with construction work whatsoever, but give me a job, I'm going to renovate your house. No, there's a process that you need to go through before you're ready to renovate somebody's house. And I've been in the business over a decade now. And it's interesting because it's like you see people come in, oh, I'm a Reiki healer, oh, I'm an energy master, oh, I'm a medium, I'm a psychic, I'm a this, I'm a whatever bazillion things people are, whatever modalities there are. And I'm not hating on any of it because, again, I've studied all of it, I've come from these places, but there lacks practicality. And my whole point is, and I know that everyone wants me to talk about crystals and how magical they are and the energy of them. Yes, I do believe crystals are magical. I do believe that they have energy to them. I do believe that it's a gift from the earth for healing and all of these things. But at the same time, practicality first. You're not going to be able to get there unless you apply the practicality of metaphysics and spiritualism to your life. And the difference between physics and metaphysics is physics is the study of what, metaphysics is the study of why. So that's where I think we need to start. We need to ask ourselves a lot of good questions. We need to come up with some answers. We need to figure out who we are, what we want, why we do what we do. All of these things need to be answered first. Like I said, I asked someone to define spiritual and they start grasping, oh, it's my upper self, it's my higher power, oh, it's God, it's connection to this source, but whatever answer someone reaches for, because they haven't really thought it out. So we need to define things and come to a place of practicality. With that being said, I have one more thing I want to say, because all the questions are very similar, and I believe that I answered my side of it. But something that I think is really relevant, and I was thinking about this on my way to work today, was you have these two sides. You have the righteousness that exists in the world, and you have evil, which exists in the world. And I've been around the block quite a few times, and I'm asking myself, I'm like, why is it that there's so much pain and suffering and chaos in the world? And what is it that we're doing to add to that? Is there a reason that there's so much pain and suffering? Why is there not more miracles happening? Why is there not more goodness? Why is it that we're all subject to this chaos? And there's this war going on right now, and scary things are going on. The coronavirus, and what is all of this? Why do we have coronavirus? Why do we have war? Why is this being shoved in our face? Why do we spend our time on YouTube and the internet and all of these things on social media, worrying about these problems in the world and not focusing on righteousness? And I think that there's two animals that exist here. We have a righteous one and we have an evil one. And The evil one is being fed 24/7 all day long by millions and millions of people. We gossip about each other, we hate each other, we're jealous of each other, we wish ill on each other, we can't make amends with people. All of these things, just these basic fundamental things, never mind doing actual crimes. Disagreeing on theology, philosophy, physics, metaphysics, all of these things are just disagreeing with each other. And I'm not a saint, but at the same time, it's like I see when I'm doing those things, and I'm like, I really want to stop doing that. And I think that that's really where it all stems from, and that's where all of this starts to come into play, is the idea of I want to start feeding this righteous animal. And I think that if we all stopped feeding this evil side, the negative side, and we started feeding the righteous side, there would be a huge shift in our world. Stop spending all the time and effort and energy giving to the negative side. You go into work and you're wishing ill on your coworkers, or you hate your boss, or you hate your job, or you hate your husband, you hate your wife, you hate your life. All of these things are just feeding that negative side. And we're guilty of it. And people often, I'm a good person, I don't know why these bad things happen. Just because you're not a murderer and a rapist, God forbid, doesn't make you a good person. Being a good person is constant and chronic self-evaluation and not feeding this evil side that exists. And I think that we need to really spend a lot more time and effort and energy in the direction of these fundamental basic things, and not so much about the crystals and their properties and kundalini and awakening and all these other things, which are important, but that comes later on down the road. And what I've noticed with people who are becoming spiritual is they want to do everything to bypass the fundamentals, the legwork, the really hard work. They want to just take a train to the top of the mountain and not walk up and go through the process. And not so much in, putting the crystal in our pocket, but in starting to really care about ourselves and the world around us, and let's stop feeding this evil animal.